Ancient Rome, a city of sin and indulgence, where gold flowed like water and lust knew no bounds. It was here that a select few women held a power that made them more dangerous than poison and more coveted than gold. Yet despite the danger, whispers spread of secret lovers, hidden pregnancies, and cruel betrayals. Some virgins were even said to have been framed by their envious colleagues, eager to seize the power and prestige of their fallen sisters. Becoming a Vestal Virgin was not a choice, but an honor and an obligation bestowed upon young girls at the age of 6. For example, they were forbidden from eating certain foods, such as shellfish and pork, and they had to follow a strict diet. The virgins were some of the most respected women in Roman society, and they enjoyed a high level of status and privilege. They were exempt from most taxes and were given access to the best shopping and entertainment that Rome had to offer. They were also able to travel throughout the empire, and they often accompanied the emperor on his military campaigns. One of the most famous examples is the story of Livia Drusilla, the wife of Augustus and mother of the future Emperor Nero. There were countless other affairs and scandals involving the Vestal Virgins. Some were born out of genuine love, while others were nothing more than political ploys. But one thing is for sure, the Vestal Virgins were not as pure and innocent as they may have seemed. They were powerful women who commanded respect and fear, and they were not afraid to use their influence to get what they wanted. Livia was said to have had an affair with her brother-in-law, Mark Antony, which resulted in the birth of twins. Another example is the story of Poppaea Sabina, the wife of Emperor Nero, who was known for her beauty and charm. She was said to have had an affair with the philosopher and poet Petronius, whose libertine lifestyle was legendary. And who could forget about the scandalous relationship between Emperor Commodus and the Vestal Virgin Crispina? Their affair was said to be the talk of the town, and their trysts were legendary. Commodus was so infatuated with her that he lavished her with expensive gifts and built her a lavish apartment near the palace. But their relationship was doomed from the start, as Commodus's mother, Julia Misa, was a staunch supporter of the cult of Isis and saw the Vestal Virgins as a threat to her own power and influence. She used her connections to start rumors about Crispinia's supposed affair with a gladiator, and she orchestrated a secret plan to destroy the lovers. As a Vestal Virgin, one could also gain great power and influence. They were often close advisors to the emperor and were able to shape Roman policy. Some virgins even held positions of authority within the Roman government. Being a Vestal Virgin was a challenging and demanding profession, but it was also one that offered great rewards. Those who chose this path were not only serving the gods, but also playing a vital role in Roman society. They were the guardians of Rome's sacred fire, the keepers of its traditions and the protectors of its people. They were also required to maintain a strict moral code and abstain from all sexual activity. They were forbidden to marry and forbidden to touch a man. The power and allure of the Vestal Virgins attracted the attention of many powerful men, including emperors, generals, and senators. Some of them sought the virgins' favor for their own pleasure, while others desired their power and influence. Regardless of their motives, these men often risked everything to pursue their desires, with some going as far as to plot and scheme to have the virgins all to themselves. The Vestal Virgins were constantly under surveillance, both by their fellow priestesses and by the authorities. They were not allowed to leave the temple grounds without permission, and their every move was watched. Still, some managed to break the rules and engage in secret affairs with men outside the temple. When such liaisons were discovered, the consequences were swift and severe. The guilty parties were put to death, with the virgins often buried alive as a warning to others. But others say that some virgins were also buried alive as a cover-up, even if they hadn't broken their vows. Their devotion to Vesta and their commitment to their sacred duties were absolute. They couldn't even look at a man lustfully or speak to them alone. They weren't allowed to even cast a glance at a man in a bathing suit or talk to them alone. This prohibition extended to their interactions with male family members, too. Even the closest family ties could not exempt a man from this rule. No matter how innocent the interaction might seem, even a simple handshake or a casual conversation, if rumors spread that a virgin had touched a man, she would be put to death. Any violation of these rules could result in severe punishment, including banishment from the order or even death. The daily life of a Vestal Virgin was filled with religious duties. They were responsible for tending to the sacred fire, making offerings to the gods and conducting rituals. They also had to deal with the demands of the Roman elite, who often called upon them to perform special rituals or offer sacrifices. In addition to their religious duties, the Vestal Virgins also had to maintain the temple and its grounds. They were responsible for cleaning the temple, tending to the gardens, and making sure that everything was in order. They also had to deal with the constant attention of the Roman elite, who often visited the temple to pay their respects or simply to admire the virgins. The Vestal Virgins were not allowed to speak to male visitors, and they had to be careful not to give the impression that they were interested in anyone. Any perceived impropriety could have serious consequences for both the virgin and her career. The process of selecting potential Vestal Virgins was meticulous and highly competitive. Families would send their daughters to live at the age where they would be rigorously trained in religious rituals. music, poetry, and other areas considered essential for their future roles. Only the most talented and well-behaved girls would be chosen. Selected girls were given the highest quality education and training, learning everything from religious rituals to music, poetry, and other subjects deemed important for their status. They were taught to read and write, to play musical instruments, and to recite poetry. They were also trained in the arts of seduction, as they were expected to use their feminine wiles to keep Rome's powerful men in check. At the age of 10, the young woman's hair was shaved off and she was officially consecrated to Vesta. She would now live at the Vestal temple, isolated from the rest of society. Here she would continue her religious training and await her turn to take on the role of priestess. So how did these women who lived under constant watch, constantly tested, constantly tempted, manage to resist? How did they keep their vows when every powerful man in Rome wanted them? And what happens when the virgins fell? What happens when they broke their sacred oath? And who were the Vestal Virgins? The Vestal Virgins, priestesses, dedicated to the goddess Vesta, keeper of the sacred flame. They were the untouchables, the divine, the powerful. For 30 years they served Vesta, guarding her eternal flame, ensuring Rome's survival, and most importantly, remaining sexless. They were not allowed to touch a man or experience any form of sexual activity. To do so would be a grave sin, an insult to the gods, and an offense against the state. And if caught, the punishment was swift and brutal. A Vestal Virgin could be put to death without a trial. No mercy, no second chances. Just a candle, some food and water, and then a slow, lonely death inside a sealed underground tomb. Their bodies were left to decompose in the darkness, their souls trapped forever in the suffocating embrace of the earth. Imagine the pressure, the constant fear of a single slip leading to such a horrifying fate. The Vestal Virgins were priestesses of Vesta, the virginal Roman goddess of the hearth, home, and family. Their primary duty was to guard the sacred flame in her temple, which was believed to symbolize the very soul of Rome. The flame had to burn eternally, and it was the virgin's responsibility to keep it alight at all times. If the flame went out, it was seen as a bad omen, a sign of the city's impending doom, and the virgins would be held responsible. In addition to their sacred duties, the virgins also assisted with other religious ceremonies, including those related to the emperor's family. They were highly respected members of Roman society, and their influence and power should not be underestimated. Romans believed that the virgins were more than just human. They were vessels of the divine, chosen by the gods themselves to serve in the highest ranks of priesthood. This belief made them both revered and feared. People from all walks of life, from emperors to commoners, had to be careful not to offend or disrespect them. After all, they were considered to be in direct contact with the gods, and any affront to a virgin could be seen as an insult to the divine. And there is a reason why they were chosen as little girls. Being a Vestal Virgin was not easy. They lived in a world of strict rules and regulations, where even the smallest infraction could have serious consequences. Despite the challenges, being a Vestal Virgin was a highly coveted position. But as we mentioned earlier, the price of their sacred role was steep. Most men respected this law because breaking it meant bringing down the wrath of Rome's most powerful women. However, there were always exceptions. There are many accounts of Vestal Virgins who are said to have had secret lovers, including Roman emperors. But these stories are just the tip of the iceberg.